take the test. So we're going to be higher. We're going to take the whole state. But Brian Myers, I'll let you stand up here so the camera can see you. Brian Bergstrom. Well, actually, back just a little bit. Right there. Come on, this way. A little left, a little right. Perfect. Josh Oakes. I think he's the one that actually started the process. And Mike Woods. And myself. So those four and myself are the ones that are certified.
Way to go, guys.
Yes. Good job. Will you touch on that just a bit on the certification, Dave?
National Recreation Park Association, they started their certification program back, must have been 82, and they actually did 2 levels, a professional level, and then they had an associate level. Since then, that has been eliminated, and you simply have the professional level. And what it entails is taking a test. It's 150 questions, and then there's a percentage there you have to take to pass. And it covers, well, I'm going to get this wrong, programming, programming, park operations, risk management, come on guys, budgeting, and therapeutic, and there was a final area. Is it administration? I don't know. The reason why I'm a little bit confused is part of the challenge is I challenged them that if they did that, I would also go after my executive. So did take that test. It covers a few more areas. It covers a lot of law. Did pass that also. So it's 150 questions, same as that, but you have to have one to get the other.
So something you're proud of.
I'm very proud of what the staff did. Yes.
Well, we're proud of you, Dave.
Well, thank you, but it's these people that motivated me. I can tell you I was scared of the one because if I didn't pass, they were going to find out and I was really in trouble.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that it sounds really good as a challenge, and then when it happens, it's like, oh. But it worked out.
Oh boy. He's one of only 2 in the state, if I could just add. One of only 2, so he's being humble, but it's a big deal.
Wow.
Kind of like
Yeah,
going for the bar.
congratulations.
I'll never take the test again. But we also have another person who's not here, but Preston Hill, our arborist. He is now a board-certified master arborist. And that's a big deal, too. It's ISA, International Society of Arborists, their highest award or level. And there's only 5 in the Pacific Northwest who are certified at that level. He is also tree risk assessment qualified. And I know Brian told me how many, I think it was 7 or 12 or something. 17. See, I got close in the Pacific Northwest, but I think some of this stuff, it challenges people to kind of push the limits and try different things. In addition, we have playground inspectors, our staff on the maintenance side, they're pesticide licensed. We've sent recreation staff to learn to cover marketing and to cover recreation programming. Those are very specific tracks. Our cemetery sexton, Kevin, has completed 2 of the 4 years for his cemetery management certification with the National Association. We've sent 2 of our staff members back to get basic and advanced training on our baseline controllers for irrigation. Brian Bergstrom was one of them. And none of these tests are easy, and they take a lot of knowledge, and I can guarantee that the irrigation one, I went past it. You have to be in that business, and you have to keep up. It's, they're computers. So we've done a lot of other training. We continue to send people as we can afford it, as we have the time, as we have the interest and the skills, and it makes a big difference. And one of the things that happens when you do that with your people is they rise up to leadership positions. And our department continues to be leaders in the Idaho Recreation and Park Association. So I'm going to have 3 people stand up. First of all, Josh, if you'll come forward. Josh is our current president of the association. Yeah, same spot. You just barely warmed it up. Mitzi Mashad is our Region 1 rep for the association. And Rachel. Rachel Lane is, I call it the student liaison. And I think it sounds so much better than student rep, but she has taken over that spot, and they're the ones who work between the universities trying to get the interest. But these 3 people serve on the board, and it's a good representation for North Idaho. So we're very proud of them.
Thank you.
And you know, I should cover this a little bit. It's not just staff that's always doing this. A number of years ago, Jackie McAvoy served. That was my first stint as president of IRPA, but she was our citizen board member. And she did that for quite a while, and then she moved on up into the National Recreation and Park Association and served as a citizen board member for Idaho. From there, she went on to serve as the president of the citizen board for NRPA. So we've had our board members, we've had people that have had interest doing that, also give us a little notoriety for the state. So.
Thank you, guys. Okay, commissioners, any amendments to the agenda? Anybody have anything they want to add? Okay, any conflicts? Under unfinished old business, Dave, we have Avista and Q Park. The dam remodel.
Yes. I wanted to just keep this in the forefront. We've had a few people express concerns with what's happening down at Qemiln Park, and it is a little bit big. This is a picture here of the South Channel Dam. This is taken last year. That's the dam right there. And then, of course, this is access. But we've got some current pictures so you guys could see. Yep. Qemiln Park restoration. And we have 2 projects going on. You have the gas pipeline, which is on Spokane Street. I guess I missed a space in there, but we'll clean it up. And a landscape company has been selected at this point. It was just this week that they made their selection. They're actually putting up the silt fence now, and they will begin construction and repair of the site. Part of the rights for the easement, which, if I can do it with the mouse, I know it's a little bit hard to see, but right up in this area is where the gas pipeline was, and they built a big trench in there to do it. We had to give them an easement along that site to bring in the gas pipeline under the river and into the park. Kind of gives you an idea here of some of the extent. Goes from the berms all the way up to the just about to the shelter. And they did cover it with planking. They did a lot of work on it to protect it. They worked on our tree zones. They're pretty good. That spot there and one over there, that's actually trees that went out. That was one of our deciduous trees that got nailed by one of the big evergreens. Missed the restroom by about 1.5 feet, so we were lucky there. But they'll take care of that as part of it. One of the things that Avista is doing on this portion of it is they're extending the berm that the highway district did and making a second one that will go around in here and out and capture water coming off the parking lot so it doesn't hit or go into the river. In here, we're going to be cutting out part of this roadway, reducing that radius, and that'll become part of the berm. That two things, it gives us the space we need without going into the playground. But more importantly, if you could walk down there, the road is all buckled from the tree roots, and you know, those are pretty nice trees in there that we don't want to lose, so that seemed like a good solution. New ADA walkway will go in to the restrooms that'll meet the current code, so that's a good thing there. They will sod the whole site. They'll repair the irrigation. I talked about protecting the drip line tree zones. You can see exactly how that worked. So this is a project that went pretty quick. They started last late fall, and they'll have it completed by mid-May. And then we'll try and protect the site as much as we can. And then when it comes down to the Post-Falls Festival in July, it'll probably get hammered again. But that's okay. That's what parks do.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side of the park, South Channel Dam, restoration plan is at about 95%. And the reason why I say that is we've had some agreed upon designs, and then they'll find that something won't work. They were looking at a platform going out for viewing, and they decided that with the rock and the way the slopes were, they could not engineer it safely. So that's going to be eliminated, that part of it. But in here, there'll be parking, handicap parking. There'll be a pathway that will go to the dam. There will be a catwalk along the face of the rock to make it safe. But this kind of gives you an idea of the extent of the area that was disturbed. They have done some work already. This is the pull-out lanes for the boats so that they can unhook before they go in the water, and then once they pull out, they can go up there and do the prep work before they hit the road. So that should speed up a little bit of the access in there. Also, along the hillside, they took some of the rock from that they pulled out and stabilized it. So dirt's been put in there, it's being seeded, and ultimately it'll kind of blend back in. This, I think, gives you a really good picture of just the extent of the change that happened. The smaller one, right here on the right, that's a channel that's just down closer to the boat launch, but that's kind of how this area looked before the project started. Not quite as narrow, but still wooded, a lot of moss, a lot of grass, and narrow. And now it's extremely wide. There's no way it's going to be restored back to what it was. That was the original push 2.5, 3 years ago when they started the project. We didn't think they'd get it back to that level, but we did not think that it would get to be that wide of a space, and that's just how it is. People have asked us, how could we let that happen? Why did we let them do it? We leased the park from Avista, so they allow us to use it. It's their land, and they had to update the cofferdam that's there, the door, the gates and everything, and it had to be refaced. So unfortunately, it has changed, but we're hopeful that with the work they're going to do in a few years, it'll start to look natural again. They'll put in pockets for landscaping and stuff like that, but it kind of tells you just how much rock was taken out. That's the facing. In there, you can pick up just a piece of the dam. So before, when it was just flat, now it's got the I don't know, superstructure is what I call it, but it has definitely changed that view from the bridge, and you know, I'm slowly getting used to it. You can see where the site there, I took a better picture next to it. The pathway itself that they're going to put in, that'll be ADA accessible, will run along the side of that rock face. They have agreed to make this wider because this is where the platform was supposed to go out. And we've had 3 or 4 different designs of platforms. The company that did the work on the dam is no longer in there. They've got almost everything out. That was Cooney, and a new company is being brought in to do all the restoration. So this, see if I can bring it back there. This pathway will go here. They're going to make it as wide as they can along that space. And then the catwalk is actually back over in that area.
Goes down the climbing wall, the climbing area.
Goes back into the hiking and climbing area, yes. So I'm going to go back to the okay. And it's kind of hard to see, but the pathway will go along here, parking will be over here, but that climbing or the catwalk will go along that space in there. And if you go there, it's a rock face that's about like that, and then they have a 3-foot fence that's always been there. So in the fall, it gets pretty wet with the water running. And of course, you add a little bit of ice and it gets real slick. So they wanted, Avista, their safety people wanted to close it completely down. And we fought that one heavily, and we finally got them to agree to build a catwalk. So it's going to be a metal grid and fencing that will go along until it hooks up to where the pathway is safe. And that's going to be about 150 feet. So we felt real good about that.
It would have been a shame to lose that.
People would have gone right over. They would not have dealt with him. We would have seen the fences cut. And I think that's how we finally were able to convince them, is we were not going to be able to enforce it, and we weren't going to staff it. And Avista didn't want to staff it either. So this was a better solution.
Good argument point.
So any questions on this process?
The completion date scheduled for it?
That particular, the south channel will be the end of the year.
We still got that much.
So it'll go through summer. They're talking about maybe stopping midway in the summer, depending on how much work they get done, and then finishing up the landscaping with the fall.
So the planning was 3 years, but we've really been, what, a year and a half, 2 years in work?
Yeah, the dam was supposed to have been completed in a year,
Right.
and it went a little over 2 years. And then that was including restoration, so it took longer. They hit a few hiccups along the way.
Long time.
Yeah,
Been a long time.
it will still impact.
That's a
Some of
beautiful
the
hike
parking.
down to the climbing wall, and that's not been available now length of time. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Before you leave, since we're still under unfinished or old business, a couple meetings ago, you gave a report on damaged trees from the windstorm.
Yes.
Can you touch on that?
The trees haven't gotten any better. They're still damaged.
Still damaged, huh? Good, they didn't heal.
I'm going to let Brian actually talk about that,
Good.
because Preston's been the one who's been doing it. I see a lot of logs lying around, and
He's been counting trees.
yeah.
So, up to this point, for the most part, we've been able to remove all of the trees that were in question and are of safety issues and that sort of thing. We still have
Lost
logs.
the top or something?
Yeah, lost the top, or we still have a handful of trees that have large diameter branches that we're going to have a climbing operation, particularly up at White Pine, a few climbing, pruning, storm damage pruning actions done at Qemiln Park, and then a couple more at the cemetery. And that pretty much wraps up the bulk of the work, with the exception of removal and hauling of the logs that are still staged throughout the parks. We have 6 sites right now that still have logs staged. Qemiln, Black Bay, up at White Pine Cemetery, and then once again out at Corbin, the bulk of the damage that we saw. Those will be hauled in the next 2 weeks. We've got a permit active right now from Idaho Department of Lands to haul that brush, and then we'll be moving forward with that. We're starting to transition now back into general maintenance in the forest environment, items that we had scheduled early last fall that we were going to do throughout the winter. We're finally getting back to our general maintenance of our trees. So we were able to accomplish a lot of this storm damage removal and pruning throughout this winter at the cost of our general maintenance to our urban forest. And we'll feel that for quite some time. It'll take, when your trees are young, the pruning cuts that you make are small. And when you start to defer those maintenance, those costs become larger as those trees begin to mature. So those are the things that we're trying to juggle. And the other item that we're currently working on right now and has produced a large number of logs down at Black Bay is some damage to western pine beetle. So we walked that site with Idaho Department of Lands, their entomologist, and he provided a recommendation for removal of all of the wood debris that contained western pine beetle above 3 inches in diameter, including all of the bark. So our cemetery sexton and his crew have been a great partner over the last, all winter, since the windstorm, and then into this early spring as we're doing removals in Upper Black Bay. And when you look at the Black Bay environment, the topography in there is pretty extreme, very rocky, and it's not an easy access to try to get those logs out of the woods. And so we're having to skid logs on 200-foot long cables to get those logs back down to a flatter area where we can skid them out to the lot. And there's a little bit of resource damage, but for the most part, I think the moss will recover relatively quickly and it'll be back to what it was before. There is going to be additional pruning or removal of some smaller brush that has western pine beetle infected in it, and that will be staged throughout the park, and we're actually going to do some slash burning because of how difficult it is to try to get all of that brush out. So if you see some smoke billowing up from Black Bay in the next couple of weeks, that's the action that's being taken out there. It'll be largely on Thursdays and Fridays that those burns will happen, and we're working with the fire district for a burn permit and that sort of thing in that way.
Any questions? Very good, thank you.
The other follow-up to that is plantings, replacement plantings. So we'll be working through some replacement plantings along with some of our right-of-way street tree planting contracts that we have going in the spring. We're hoping to get all of our former stump sites that were ground down and are now planting sites. We're hoping to get those planted in this spring round of planting. So that'll basically get us caught up to where we were before November. And then all of the removals we've had throughout this winter storm season will be deferred into the future.
And again, I wasn't on the agenda, but do you have a rough estimate on how many trees we lost?
I could give you those numbers. We did a really good, solid job of inventory. Nina was out in front of our maintenance and urban forestry crew, inventorying all of these sites for either removal or replacement and what the equipment needs were. So we actually have a really good map, and I could pull that together for the next meeting.
Got it, thank you.
Oh.
Good job. Any other questions? Very good, thank you, Brian. Any other old business? Any commissioners have anything they want to discuss? Well, we'll move on then to new business. New business. Number one, we have election of officers for 2016. We need a chairperson and a vice chairperson. And as it says here, we nominate one or more candidates. The person has to accept the nomination. The commission votes on the candidate, and then they begin their position on the next meeting. So I open the floor to nominations.
I'll nominate Rick for chair.
I'll second that.
Other nominations for chair? I spent an hour today again on a Rundle, and there's enough, I think, left that the only reason I would stay as chair, I'd like to see that get tied up, and then I would step down on the next election and let someone else. Saying Jim did it for 3 years. This will be my third year. Tammy, you did it for at least 3.
2.
Is that right?
Jim did it for 2.
And so I think if there's no other nominations, then we'll go to vice chairperson.
Can we vote on that one
You
at a
need to vote?
time?
If there's no other nominations?
Yeah,
Okay.
Want it legal.
We'll vote. You want to call that, Penny?
I'll call Davis.
Aye.
Gorley.
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
Nordum.
I'll abstain.
Okay, Gould.
Aye.
Hale.
Aye.
Cornwell.
Aye.
You could vote for yourself.
Thank you much. You know, a couple meetings ago, Jim leaned over and he said, we were late starting. He said, in the 3 years that I was chair, I was never late. I owe him one. We need a vice chair. Howard's vice chair now. He did a great job covering for me last, but the floor is open for nominations for vice chairperson.
I would move to nominate Howard.
I'd accept that.
I'll second that.
We have a first and a second for Howard for vice chair. Are there any other nominations? None. We'll do a vote then.
All right. Davis.
Aye.
Gorley.
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
Nordum.
All right.
Gould.
Aye.
Hale.
Aye.
Cornwall.
Aye.
I thank you guys for your faith and trust in me. Hopefully I'll do another job. We'll move on to number B on the agenda tonight is disc golf. I have a nice carrying bag and about 15 discs. Is there a need for those? Do people? I would pass those on to a disc golfer with my latest rotor cuff. I don't disc golf anymore, but
You might be able to use them with the camp even.
yeah, I'll pass them on to the department. I'll just bring them in and turn them in. Give them to
I'm
Mitch.
going to turn this one over to Brian, but I just wanted to start out, first of all, saying that the disc golf course is very busy. If you go down there, as we talked about some of the changes that were being made, well, they have happened. He has worked hard with the user groups and getting feedback. I think just the amount of feedback we got was very positive, and it speaks a lot about the course. And people care about that course, but I could tell you that the changes that were made did not damage it at all. They helped protect the site, but they've made a pretty good play on it. So I'm going to let Brian talk because I'll take everything away from him, and then
There's one major problem with the course is the river has eaten a few of my discs. And
if you go down to Spokane Parks and Recreation, their office right at City Hall, they have a lot of your discs.
they have my name and phone number on them, and I did get one back.
Oh, that's funny.
So over the past month, Brian, his maintenance crew, and a group of volunteers have put in over 100, we had over 170 hours of volunteer labor that went into the reconfiguration of this course. And that's not including the time that I spent walking the course with the lead core group of disc golfers as we were trying to scout out this new layout and come to consensus on what we could offer, what had to change, and really arrive at a good middle ground that still will provide 18 holes throughout the winter. We'll have to pull a couple of those holes out of play in the summer as the park gets to be busy with other park patrons. But for the winter environment, we're going to have an 18-hole course out there, and we've reduced the number of places that we're crossing parking areas that have frustrated the disc golf users. It's pretty common to hear voices of complaints of discs needing to be thrown through where cars are parked. So some of the changes you've seen or will see out in the park as you move around are rocks that are placed to try to corral some of those parking areas so we don't have those vehicle with disc conflicts, and we can expect cars to be parked in these areas and not in these other areas. The other thing we're working through out there are just the improvements to the day use sites. We've got 6 fire rings that have gone in the day use picnic spots. So those are some improvements that have been slated for a while now, and those are now coming to completion. In the next 2 weeks, we'll have all of those installed, and those will be up and running. Along the disc golf side, the rearranging of the parking out towards the eastern side of the park. So for the bulk of the disc parking we'll see in this area and over here. So the primary uses on that end of the park are disc golf now and whitewater access. And so hopefully the springtime weather not always being extremely favorable to being out hiking around in the woods, that's when the ideal flows come in for our whitewater users. And So hopefully those can be some shared use that don't have a lot of conflicts. So that, moving that parking to that eastern end opened up the day use sites along this section of the roadway. And we organized some of the parking there so that we don't end up with cars parking clear out into the wooded area, and provided a little additional parking in this area here. We've got 12 spaces in that area after we get those chalked out, and hopefully organize that in such a way that people can know where to park and it's angled stalls and that sort of thing. On the extreme west side of the park, we've closed this whole section of the park to vehicle access, and so you'll see some larger boulders coming in there blocking those areas. So we put in a vehicle maintenance gate at this location just to reduce the impact of vehicles moving in and out, and we increased the density of the disc golf flight paths, we'll call them, on that side of the park. It's a flatter setting. What we found is over the years, the steeper slopes and the more granular nature of the soils out there are what's causing the bulk of our erosion concerns. And so we attempted to move to the flatter areas and locate baskets where you see the bulk of the wear and convergence of the discs down to those flatter areas. So we still put a couple of T-pads up high on this location here, and those are throwing down towards the lower environment. So it's been a lot of back and forth with the group, and they've been great to work with, and they came out in force over the last couple of weekends. 2 weekends ago in the rainstorm, 14 volunteers. 14. So we had 14 concrete pads for the tee boxes. So we don't, with one staff employee to get that work done. So, you know, Jamie was a part of our Rotary Bike Rack grant and accomplishing that work. So she got to be a part of what's involved with pouring that concrete.
It's a beautiful course.
Yeah.
So, we can be proud of that.
Yes, indeed.
One of the things I wanted to highlight, because Brian kind of glossed over, is the fact that we do have a couple spots that are up on the hill and they're throwing down. The reason why we stayed with that, the golfers really wanted to keep their baskets up there and they love that, but the ability to get a disc directed real closely doesn't happen, so that's why we saw such a wide range. By going down and having it, they can walk up a stairway or a pathway that's set, and we're able to revegetate. So we felt that that was a good compromise in that site.
Previously, this hole number 14 threw in this general direction, and we'd see discs that would get thrown generally in this direction, trying to aim up and above all the trees down the Corbin Ditch. And so you have discs spread from the very uppermost portion of the Corbin Ditch all the way down to the roadway. And the foot traffic on that steep slope with 2-inch to 4-inch rock, everything's just rolling off the hill. So we'll be continuing to go in and replant throughout the spring and again next fall, trying to get some new shrubs established and some grasses established on that slope and down into this area as well. So that's our progress moving forward, and plans moving forward.
Good job.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Along with the disc golf discussion, we wanted you to see what's happening there, but I also want for you folks to start thinking about that one of the projects we're going to have to be working on is adding another disc golf course. And I can tell you staff is looking at additional land, trying to find spaces where we can do it. I know it's been suggested that we look at some of our other parks, whether it be Black Bay or Kiwanis or whatever. We want to keep it away from any of those spaces. Black Bay's fragile enough. Kiwanis, it doesn't fit with our lease, but the impact that disc golf, it's popular, but it does affect the vegetation. I need more coffee, folks. We're lambing right now, so I'm still. Probably 10 years ago, maybe 12 years ago, we found a Volkswagen bus that was parked in the brush and somebody had been camping there. And it took us probably 2 weeks to spot it because of the brush. I guarantee where it was parked, if it parked there now, we would know it within about 10 minutes. It's just gone. So we have to be very sensitive of what we put it in to that space. So we're looking out on the prairie. We're looking at a couple other sites that are owned by the state, and we're trying to find a spot. But we do know that we have to add another disc golf course. So you're going to hear more about it as time comes up.
Weekends you wait.
Yeah. Every time I've been down there, there's somebody, and more than just somebody, there's several parties playing. And it can be in the morning, it can be evening, middle of winter, you name it, they're using it.
Thank you, guys, both of you. Moving on, then, are we finished disc golf? Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Okay, you have any administrative or staff report comments, Dave?
I'm just open for any questions on my director's report.
I was impressed with the program tonight. And the dedication that those guys had to earn that achievement. That's a lot of hours and work and study and time. We were at a Rotary meeting a couple weeks ago where the presenter was commenting about just Post Falls as a rule, looking at the parks and the lifestyle, and it says so much about what we do. We think at times, well, we just go through the motions. No, we don't just go through the motions. There's a lot of decisions that are made every day, and we have a lot. And we just had a conversation this morning, you and I did, about companies that came, Buck Knives, when they came years ago, they looked at, lifestyle. Parks are a tremendous part of the lifestyle. And so if we look at that, I think we can be proud of what we do. It's easy for me to sit up here and wear my jacket and say, gee, we do a good job, but you guys are the ones out there all the time making it work. Although I did endorse Dave today to maybe a new sponsor for a team. We'll see how that goes.
Yep.
Good. Any comments, anybody?
I've got a question on the
Yeah.
staff report.
Yes.
Last week last month we talked quite a bit about the capital projects and the different things that we're going to be doing. So do we have a budget that kind of prioritizes the different projects and then kind of assign a cost? And then do we have a budget that we work each year? I know it's based on impact fees, et cetera, but I just don't know that I totally understand how we manage that and what order they're going to be, each project's going to be taken on.
A majority of the capital projects that we do are with impact fees. Now, some of the projects that we looked at with the comp plan would not fit within an impact fee budget unless it's a new park and we're adding capacity, like some of the signage and some of that stuff. So those are ones we have to do two things. One is see if we can get money from the general fund during the budget cycle. The second one is to see if there's grants out there or donors. So we kind of do a combination. On impact fees, there is a capital improvement plan that goes with impact fees. And it's not set hard and fast that you're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, because we're trying for grants. Sometimes we're trying to get the land. So it's a tier, like these are our top needs, middle needs, so that sometimes we might get 2 of the ones on the top tier done, and suddenly we get a grant that affects a middle tier, and we're able to move it forward. So it's a little flexible on that side, but we have rankings on all of that. On the other side that uses general funds, those items, we'll put forward our requests every budget cycle. It's a 2-year cycle, and it just depends on the funding. And within that comp plan there in the city strategic plan, it ranked it as short-term, mid-term, or long-term, and that's what kind of dictates when we go after it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering how the funding and the priorities lined up, and then because I guess it does make sense. Some of them have to come from the general fund or grants, and that would move around. But yeah, it just seemed like we would have a budget and then maybe a priority list, and I just hadn't seen it.
Yeah, we have that. It's just not with impact fees and our capital improvement, we don't set it as 1, 2, 3 just because, well, if you look at a lot of the projects working on, Tullamore is a great example. It's not just that it's under our control, but we're negotiating with developers, we're working on timelines. For some of them, we're trying to get right-of-way acquisition, so some of those sometimes take longer because we can't just take the land, we have to work with it.
And so we're in a 2-year cycle?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? And so where are we at in that?
We are starting the budget process. Everything starts coming into our finance department at the end of the month.
Then you make
And
the
it'll finally,
recommendation for those.
it'll be accepted or approved by the council end of August, 1st of September.
Okay.
Good. Any other commission comments? That was good. Okay, we're not having nothing under executive session. Anybody want to make a motion, we adjourn? We don't really need one, but I've always asked it.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
We are adjourned.